So, you're coming to Vietnam. Well, this full 8-day itinerary will help get you started on your upcoming adventure through northern Vietnam. It's definitely guaranteed to test your limits, from the bustling streets of Hanoi to the serene landscapes of the mountainous regions. Every twist and turn of the road offers a new and captivating experience. Prepare to be amazed by the beauty of northern Vietnam, where the roar of your motorbike engine becomes the soundtrack to your adventure. Grab your helmets and let's go. Now, I'm going to break down every day into categories. We'll start each day with where we are and where we're going, followed by how many kilometers it'll take and the time it'll take us to get there. I want to share our costs and accommodations of where we stayed along the way, as well as the food we ate and some of the amazing sights. At the end of the video, I'll share some tips to help make your adventure one to remember. But first things first, you want to go on an epic motorbike adventure, but don't have a bike? Well, I've got you covered. We rented our Honda XR150L from Fung's Motorbike, and it was 400,000 VND per day, which is about $22 Canadian. The owner actually took the time and sat down with us to review the map and give us feedback on the route that we had chosen for our adventure. He was always reachable on WhatsApp if we had any questions. He had a variety of bikes to choose from that were somewhat customizable based on your needs. We were able to get brackets put on that we mounted our backpacks to, and we also got a back box that fit all our stuff very easily. Many people typically head out from Hanoi and head straight to Ha Giang to start the loop, but we like to give ourselves some time to see things along the way. So on day one, we're going to travel from Hanoi to Yen Bai, which is about halfway between Hanoi and Ha Giang. Google Maps says it's 148 kilometers and it'll take about 3 hours to get there. Now, keep in mind, it will almost always take you longer because you won't be traveling at high speeds, especially when you're driving through so many small towns along the way, which is good. It makes it easy to stop, find a quick bite to eat, or a drink along the way. On our way to Yen Bai, we passed this really cool bridge that opened in September of 2023, and if you're a bridge lover like me, you'll be fascinated by this one. It's 518 meters long and 20.5 meters wide. It took 2 years to complete with a massive price tag of 650 billion VND, which is about 35.5 million Canadian. We saw the bridge off in the distance when we were driving, so we thought we'd take a little detour, drove over it, then turned right back around and continued on our way. Once we got to Yen Bai, we stopped at this delicious banh mi shop and it only cost 50,000 VND for two. Then we headed off to our accommodations. We stayed at Mountain Breath Retreat and it was only $17 a night. The hosts were very welcoming and they offered dinner as well, which was a traditional Vietnamese dinner with all organic ingredients, mostly grown from their garden. Adding dinner to your stay cost an additional 100,000 VND per person, which we did, and it was very good. We also hiked to an amazing lookout and we had the place to ourselves. It overlooked Phac Ba Lake, which was a man-made lake of 1,300 islands. It is absolutely beautiful, but I'll warn you, the hike to get up there is steep, but views are totally worth it. I also want to add that when we were at the lookout, there is a small parking fee of 5,000 VND, which you pay to the property owners, basically just to park on their land and hike up to the lookout. And last point for day one, if you are in need of a motorbike repair, there are plenty of shops in Yen Bai to help you out. On day two, you'll travel from Yen Bai to Ha Giang. It's about a 198 kilometer ride and it takes roughly 4 to 4.5 hours depending on the route you take. Along the way, you'll see beautiful tea plantations when traveling from Yen Bai to Ha Giang. You'll also drive by wood processing areas since Vietnam is the 5th largest plywood exporter in the world. There are also many shops along the way. There's places to get coffee, great pho to keep you fueled up for the drive. We saw a huge church across the water just as we crossed into Ha Giang province. It was beautiful. Ha Giang basically has everything you need. There's lots of budget-friendly accommodations, places to eat, clothing stores, just in case you need some warmer clothes since it does get colder the higher you go into the mountains. They also have bike repair shops just in case you run into some issues. We ate at 1990 Kitchen because it got good reviews on Google. The food was just okay, but it was very clean and the staff were very friendly. We stayed at a place called Ti Lao and it was only $18 Canadian per night. It was a great stay for the cost, but it was a little loud since it was right on the main street. So all in all, we had a great second day. On day 3, we'll travel from Hajong to Yanmin. It's about 100 kilometers and should take about 2.5 hours to get there. But of course, you're going to want to take your time and hit some of the hot spots like Heaven's Gate. This is a great spot to get your first glance of some of the beautiful landscapes. Here you can grab a hot beverage, sit, relax, and take in the views. If you look at Google Maps in and around the Hajong Loop, you'll find that there are many pass roads that lead you to small, authentic villages that are untouched by tourism. You'll see beautiful rice terraces, big valleys, winding roads all along this route, and you're going to think everything looks amazing. So of course it's going to take you a little longer than 2.5 hours because you're going to be making so many stops along the way. On one of our stops, we ended up booking a place in Yanmin called Homestay Phuket, which was only 13 Canadian a night. This accommodation was heavenly in terms of comfort. The beds were great, it had heat, a hot shower, it were walkable to all the restaurants. It was awesome. We ended up eating at 2 great restaurants and I'll leave their locations in the description box below. Both were affordable and tasted great. When driving the Hajong Loop, you will need an international driver's permit with a motorbike designation, or you will be fined because there are police checkpoints all around the Hajong Loop. The amounts of the fines can vary up to 1.5 million VND. We only encountered them once on our entire trip, and the only thing they wanted to see was the international driver's permit. No passport was required. On day 4, we traveled from Yanmin to Bao Lac, which is about 117 kilometers. Google Maps says it'll take about 3 hours and 20 minutes, but at this point, it's just a rough estimate due to how awesome the views are and the places that you're going to stop. Now at this point, you could veer off from this itinerary and go to the Geological Plateau Park, and then from there carry on to the Flag, which many people do because it's the most northern point in Vietnam, and the views are supposed to be epic. But if you've watched any of our motorbike series, you'll know that we didn't have the greatest weather and visibility was not very good. So we decided to skip these 2 points and adapt to a new plan. We ended up driving through Don Van, which had beautiful views overlooking the town. It's a great place to stop for coffee or a bite to eat and take in the beautiful landscapes. We hopped back on the bike and headed through the Mae Lang Pass, which had limited views, but what we did see was amazing. Mayovac was another great town that was surrounded with lush green mountains. Once we arrived in Bao Lac, we were pleasantly surprised with our sunny hotel. It was very comfortable and was only 19 Canadian a night. You won't have a problem finding good food and drinks in Bao Lac. We walked to a place just a few doors down from our homestay, and it was inexpensive and delicious. Bao Lac is a happening little town. We went for a walk after dinner and felt completely safe. Day 5, we'll leave Bao Lac and go to Cao Bang. It's about 112 kilometers and should take you about 3 hours to get there. This section of the itinerary will definitely test your driving skills as you make your way through this muddy mountain pass. This was definitely the muddiest section we encountered on the route. It was unbelievable. Many people choose to stop at the lookout here. We just flew the drone instead and were amazed that we made it up the hill without falling over. But I will say there were parts of the road that I got off and walked. It just seemed safer that way. We made another stop along the way in this majestic place where we found Angel Eye Mountain. It was extremely slippery in this valley, and this is where we ended up face first in the mud. The views in the valley were pretty spectacular. We were basically there by ourselves. We only saw one other person the whole time we were there. It was definitely worth a stop. Once we got into Cao Bang, we treated ourselves to a wonderful stay at La Maison Boutique Hotel. It was $41 a night and that included breakfast. This hotel is definitely worth the splurge. They offered laundry services and we got our bike washed right across the street. After we cleaned ourselves up from the muddy mess, we walked to Pedro's for dinner, and it was the highest rated restaurant on Google in Khao Bang, and it was delicious. On day 6, we leave Khao Bang and we drove to Bang Chak Waterfall. It's 83 kilometers to the waterfall and took about 2 hours to get there. I love waterfalls and couldn't come all this way and not see Bang Chak Waterfall. Even though it was a cold and drizzly day, the waterfall was stunning. There are boat rides that you can take while you're there or get your picture taken with these beautiful horses. The entrance to the waterfall was 40,000 VND per person, and you could spend as much time as you want there just roaming around the grounds, enjoying the sounds of the rushing water. We also made an unexpected stop at this temple that was close by. The temple gave you great views of the waterfall from above, and it was very peaceful there, and it was not busy at all. After we were done exploring around, we ended up heading back to Khao Bang for another night, and this time we stayed at the Max Boutique Hotel. It was 31 Canadian a night with breakfast. Then that night we headed back to Pedro's Pizza because it was just that good. Day 7 is where our journey basically took a left turn, and even though we didn't complete this full itinerary due to a crash about an hour into our journey to Bacan, our plan was to visit Ba Be Lake, which is the biggest natural lake in Vietnam. Day 7 was going to be one of the bigger driving days for us because we decided not to stay in the national park, but it's definitely something you could add to your itinerary to extend your stay and explore the national park over 2 days. Here you can take a boat ride on Ba Be Lake, go trekking, or explore caves. But if you plan on just having a short visit here, it's 125 kilometers just to get to the lake, which will take about 3 hours, then another 68 kilometers to Bacan, which will take another 2 hours. There are many places to stay in Ba Be Lake. Even though we didn't stay there are great options on booking.com, like the Trans Swan Homestay. It's $6 Canadian a night and gets an 8.7 rating out of 112 reviews. It has great views of the lake. Or you can stay at Ba Be Legend Hotel for $24 Canadian a night. It gets a 9.3 rating out of 106 reviews. They also have a restaurant right on site, which is always a big win after a long day on the bike. On day 8, you'll head back to Hanoi. Google Maps says it's 153 kilometers and should take about 3.5 hours to get there. But if you're looking for a stop halfway, you can check out Thai Nguyen. It's the 9th largest city in Vietnam and is popular for its tea. I wanted to end the video with some tips for your upcoming adventure. The best time to visit northern Vietnam is during spring and autumn. We did our adventure starting November 28th into December, and our views were minimal, and it was very misty and lots of cloud cover. You can do the loop in 3 days, but I'd recommend giving yourself a little more time. Layers will definitely be your best friend. It gets colder than you think when you're up in the mountains. Bring some kind of rain gear. It not only helps with rain, but helps with wind protection. Wearing gloves is also a good idea. It helps with wind, rain, and the cool air against your hands while driving. I'd recommend a manual motorbike. Our Honda 150 was enough power to get us through all of the elevation. Also, wearing some kind of motorcycle gear is always a good idea, because you just never know. You will need an international driver's permit with a motorcycle designation. There are a few checkpoints along the Ha Giang Loop, so just be aware. And the last one is, book your accommodations the day you travel. It gives you lots of flexibility without feeling rushed. This is how we booked our stays, and I would definitely do it again. I'm going to be leaving the Northern Vietnam playlist up on the screen if you want to check out more highlights of the individual days. Thanks for watching, guys!